Welcome to the show tonight. We have a very special guest, Mr. Cory Byrd. Cory, why don't you say hello to our listeners for us?
Hey guys, thanks for coming out. I'm excited to spread the word on cannabis. Yeah, thanks for coming.
Thank you, Cory. A little backstory on Cory. He has been a master grower and senior cultivator in the cannabis industry for going on 6 years now. He's won the High Times Cannabis Cup 5 times in America and Amsterdam, and currently he's the lead cultivation consultant for Full Melt Fusion. We got a little Q&A today to give our listeners a little insight into the cannabis industry from an expert cultivator's perspective. Without further ado, let's jump directly into the Q&A. So, Cory, what got you into growing?
Well, really, it was kind of chance. When I moved out to Colorado, I knew I wanted to get in the industry. I was actually working 3 jobs, doing 3 different things. I was a bud tender, I was wholesaling, and I was trimming. And things fell through with the bud tending job and the wholesaling job. And the next day I walked into the grow where I was trimming at, and I just looked at the master grow and I was like, "Do you need a grower?" And he's like, "Yeah, can you be here at 6 a.m. the next day?" I was like, "Absolutely." And then I came in the next day, and then I started learning the basics of growing. And I just fell in love doing it. Getting my hands dirty, giving love to the plants, taking care of them, just became natural.
Nice. Well, I guess that brings me up to my next question, which would be like, what was the journey like from when you got into growing to kind of the level where you're at right now, where you're at the expert level?
It was definitely a struggle. I had hard moments, and it took a lot of hard work to get there. But you got to start somewhere. I started at the bottom, like I said, trimming, and then I spent time doing the bottoming and all the grunt work around the warehouse, and then just kept doing the best of my abilities and just struggling and working hard, and then it finally paid off.
Nice, man. Nice. In regards to the cannabis industry in Colorado, what was your experience like being in the actual industry in Colorado, especially when it changed from just medical to medical and recreational, and being a cultivator?
It was a fantastic time. I moved out there the perfect time. To be honest with you, when I first moved out there, it was like the Wild West. Everyone was just growing weed and selling it and doing whatever they wanted. There was no real regulation. And then all of a sudden, recreation hit, and the Colorado government realized they needed to get their stuff in order. And then that brought an interesting perspective to it, with the plant seed-to-sale tracking being mandatory, and every plant having a tag and a barcode, and this brought a whole computer aspect to growing, and it just went from a bunch of hippies and farmers growing inside warehouses to an actual structured industry. So it was great to be at that pinnacle and that turning point for the industry, because it changed the industry for the better, in my opinion. There's a lot of growers still out there in Colorado that try to play it like the Wild West, but they get caught, and then their plants get destroyed, their crops get destroyed, because they're not following the regulations. I think the regulations is what's going to guide the rest of the country into adopting medical and possibly recreational, and eventually recreational, I should say, based on the structure that Colorado was forced to form when passing that. Because they were way more advanced than Washington was. Washington had barely had a medical program when they went rec. So they were starting from scratch, and they stole a lot of infrastructure from Colorado. So, yeah, it was a great experience being there, being on the ground level and seeing that.
Nice. I agree with you too. I feel like Colorado is definitely going to set the standard for a national theme in regards to how compliance will be handled, for sure. What would you say would be the biggest struggle as a cannabis grower in this industry today? Would be
The biggest struggle to be a cannabis grower in this industry, it really goes back to before it was an industry. There's a lot of people, a lot of great growers that are used to growing in basements and closets and wherever they can, and that they can do really successful in that small environment. But that doesn't always work on a warehouse level when you're dealing with thousands upon thousands of plants. It's a different infrastructure. It's a different method. A lot of growers have trouble adapting to that. So that's a big struggle for a lot of people because you get the people that, like myself, who kind of learned on a industrial scale rather than a home grow scale. And you're working with these people that want to be in the industry and they love it just as much as you do, but they grew up on the home scale, and then they have these methods, they're homegrown, like use soap and vinegar and do this, and it doesn't really work on such a massive scale. That's been one of the biggest struggles in Colorado. Another thing was always with the moving of plants indoors, creating these artificial environments, a lot of struggles with the plant immune system and pests and funguses that weren't so common on the marijuana plant became very common and very difficult to deal with. So there was lots of struggles with the industry and that nature.
Nice. Yeah, I totally agree with you. If you were to say what's your favorite method of growing and what's your favorite medium and why would you choose these two pathways?
My favorite method of growing is I like to redline it. I like to run as hot as I can. I like to feed as much as I can. Give these plants as much possible energy and nutrients to absorb to produce, cannabinoids and everything and do photosynthesis. And with that, my favorite medium is cocoa. I say cocoa because you can water it heavy. It's basically empty. It's pH in the right levels, between 5.6 and 6.2. It's perfect for the range in your nutrients when you feed. And with that, you can force feed it. Like you can overfeed it. It's really hard to overwater a cocoa plant, so you can get a complete water to flush. So you can just strengthen this plant with everything. Give it the best possible environment to live in.
Nice. When you say cocoa, I mean I know what you mean by when you say cocoa, but to elaborate for our listeners, are you using straight cocoa core, or are you doing cocoa mixed with perlite or some kind of other cutter in with the cocoa itself?
It's a cocoa core with a little bit of perlite, very small amount, and a little bit of like a bark almost, just kind of to help with the drainage. Because if you use pure straight cocoa core, it actually doesn't drain very well. So you have to cut it a little bit to help it drain, but it has to be mixed very well too. You can't like layer it. You can't put like the perlite on the bottom and then the cocoa. It doesn't work like that. It has to be mixed really well.
For sure. Well, you mentioned nutrients. Are you loyal to any specific nutrient line? And if you are, which one are you loyal to?
Really, I'm not really loyal to any specific brand. There are lots of great brands out there, and I think each one makes one or two spectacular items. So I'll take, I'll take like my base from one company, their A and their B for veg and flour, and then I'll get all my additives. They'll get from different companies. One company might make a better CalMag, another company might make a better silica brand, beneficial bacteria of that nature and that sort of thing. And then your calcium and your sugars. I'll kind of mix those up and just kind of get the best concentration or the best ratio that I'm looking for. So I'm not really loyal to any one brand. I do love several brands for certain products, though.
Which would
I love Advance. I love Canna.
Nice.
House of Gardens. Those are probably my top three.
Nice, very nice. What about light preferences? Do you have I know a lot of people like to grow LEDs. Some people like to grow the HIDs. What is your preference?
Really, I don't like LEDs. I think they're way too expensive, and I don't think they're where they need to be for cannabis production. Their spectrum's great. I just don't think their intensity is high enough. I prefer, I do love the HPS, but they have the double-ended. And personally, what I would prefer is do like half and half, like do every other bulb, like HPS, double end, HPS, double end, and kind of scatter it like that, maybe checkerboard it. And that's for flower, and then for veg. I love the T5s for early veg. You can get them real close. They're not real hot. so they keep cool. You can get the intensity as close to the plant as possible, and then, in mid-veg, later veg, definitely a metal halide bulb. It's perfect for the veg. Keep it low. Give your plant, keep it high enough so it doesn't burn your plants, because it is much hotter than the T5s, but it gives a much better intensity than the T5s and a better spectrum. So those would be the lights that I would use, and why.
I guess, what would be like the deciding factor, I guess, against LEDs then? What would you say would be like the largest concern with cultivating with LEDs?
But LEDs, like I said, they're expensive for what you get. You don't see as much, you don't see an increase in your production or cannabinoid production, yield, that sort of thing, to kind of justify the cost of them. That, they're kind of a hassle to deal with. They require special brackets, and you have to get so many of them to cover the same spectrum, the same square footage as regular bulb, or not a regular bulb, a metal halide or HPS. So that kind of becomes an issue, is efficiency with the LEDs. I don't think, as the cost benefit goes, I don't think you gain enough to justify it on a industrial scale.
Nice. What would you see as the most common pests and pathogens to infest a commercial garden, and which are the hardest to remove in both categories as well?
Most common pests is going to absolutely be spider mites, and at the same time, they're going to be the hardest to remove. There are tons of products out there on the market to kill them. I yet to find one that actually kills the eggs. But you can, if you stay on top of it, you can combat them. They're the hardest because anyone that works in your grow, that grows at home, they're probably going to have them too. They're very common. You get them on your house plants outside. So it's really easy for them to get inside the grow, on shoes, on clothing, through cracks in the concrete that you don't even know are there. And in that nature, it's what makes them the most difficult. As far as pathogen goes, I'm going to go with funguses, specifically powdery mildew, because there's a lot of good products that will kill powdery mildew that have a lot of negative effects on your bud, burning the hairs, which affects photosynthesis and cannabinoid production. So there's that. And it's not necessarily the most difficult, but it is because of that. The most difficult thing to deal with, it would definitely be boitress or bud rot. There's really nothing you can do about it once you get it. If you catch it early enough, you might be able to stop it, but there's really nothing you can do for it and absolutely save your bud.
Nice. I totally agree with you on the pest, and it kind of ties back with your medium of choice for growing cocoa. I mean, the dry cycles with the cocoa, it definitely allows you to eliminate most of these moisture-bearing pathogens and pests that fester and grow inside the soil medium and migrate up the stalk of the plant. So I could see how, even by choosing this specific type of medium or a different medium, if you're running a more moist environment within your grow, based off the environmental conditions, I mean, you could kind of help combat some of these types of pests from getting into your grow and kind of eliminating it to a certain narrowing point. Would you agree on that?
Oh, absolutely. With the cocoa, you can create a very consistent wet-dry cycle. Water one day, skip a day, water one day, or skip 2 days, and water again. And this is constantly creating a damp, moist cycle environment that they love to thrive in. That's what they want. And then it goes dry really quickly, and it stays dry. And so then, they don't like their environment anymore, and it keeps doing this, and it kind of annoys them, and then they don't want to live there. They starve, then they die, and their eggs don't hatch. So then eventually what they do is not move there. It's not a permanent solution, and it's not a great solution, but it absolutely helps in preventing the environment that they like.
Nice. So you discussed the differences between moving cultivation of cannabis from the outdoor kind of grown in a field or growing in a closet to kind of a more commercial atmosphere in large warehouse scales. Obviously, lots of conditions change when you're growing on such a large scale. What are the biggest struggles that a cultivator would experience just by the environment of growing indoors specifically?
Really, the biggest struggle indoors is recreating the environment. The lights are good. They're nowhere near as powerful as the sun. They have a long way to go before that's going to be there. But that's combated with having great lights. And then the other part of the environment is like your humidity. It is extremely hard to control humidity in large rooms. Same thing with temperature. You have to constantly run super powerful HVAC machines that are sucking in the humidity and blowing in cool air to cool down the lights. So it really comes down to recreating what's already been created. That's where the most difficulty lies, and we're constantly struggling to make the cycle as close to the night cycle as it is now. Completely dark, and you get light leaks all the time, and you get minuscule light leaks and not even see them, but they can still affect the plants. People working in the grow rooms at night, green light's great, but it's still giving off light. So it's like I said, it's really like working this indoor environment and trying to recreate the outdoor environment side of it.
Nice. Yeah, one of the worst things I see probably is what people using their smartphones as lights because they're too lazy to put even a green light on, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And any grower will deny it if they're smart enough. But they all do it. Because, they want to walk in there for 2 seconds and they can't find a green light. They're like, oh, fuck, forget it. I'll just do it. It's not going to kill them. But that stuff affects the plant. It affects their like, what the hell? Like, the sun just came back out for a second. Can you imagine if that actually happened?
Right? It's like the Truman Show. What do you think the biggest outdoor struggles would be for large production? Because, when you're growing, tossing some seeds down in a field and just whatever grows. But when you're actually growing for money in your pocket and for your company's success, what do you think the biggest struggle would be, like, based off outdoor growing versus indoor?
Oh, with outdoor growing, it's quite obvious. It's outdoors. You have all these uncontrolled elements that no matter how hard you try, you're not going to be able to control them. You can't control the sun. You can't control the weather. You can't control predators. You can't control anything, really. Pests, pathogens. This lack of control is going to make your yield and your potency suffer. Granted, it's going to be better than indoor stuff because it is outdoors, but you still run the risk of these uncontrolled variables.
Absolutely. Yeah, we had a bunch of CBD harvesters down in Pueblo. They lost a large amounts of their crop from locusts. So I mean, it's so random because one year they don't come through, and then the next year they come through, and most of your crop's gone.
Exactly. Like when you're growing cannabis in the field, like you have the same problem that every other farmer has. There's more diseases, there's more access diseases. You have like things like locusts that just eat the plant and literally just plague your crop, which is why I think greenhouse growing is the most optimal, because it's kind of the blend of the indoor and the outdoor. It gives you more controlled variables. You can use artificial lights when the sun's just not doing it that day, when it's just too cloudy. It gives you the protection from the weather and the elements and these natural predators and pathogens and pests that don't want to attack your crop, but it gives you all the benefits of growing outdoors.
I love the hybrid approach too. You get the supplemental lighting from the sun, and on a cloudy day you have your artificial lighting to supplement, so you have a full spectrum of feeding. It's awesome. I totally agree on the hybrid setup.
Yeah, the hybrid setup's the way to go, which brings me back to the cocoa. That's why I prefer the cocoa, is because it kind of acts like soil, but it's technically like a hydroponics because of the amount of water that it can use. So it's kind of like a happy medium in between these two amazing grow methods.
Totally. Tell us about pH and its effect on the growth process. I know it's a very crucial point, and what's your take on it?
pH is extremely important. Keeping your pH, your soil at a particular pH is going to help the plant grow. And same thing, and when it comes to feeding your plants, having your pH and controlling your pH, if you start it low at the beginning of the week, and then, you move it up a little bit, and then you move it up again, at the end of the week, it's going to activate different nutrients. Different nutrients are activated at different pHs, so you're going to get this different feed. And then, the next week you go back to where you started, and then just keep doing that cycle. That way you're constantly getting this wave of different nutrients. Like, nutrients are going to be more active and less active at different pHs. So by fluctuating your pH to just in your nutrients alone, you can get the best bang out of your nutrients. And then keeping your soil between these certain ranges as well helps uptake these nutrients. Because just as the nutrients behave and are more active at certain pHs, so are the roots and the microscopic organisms in the microscopic ecosystem that's living in there. They're going to be more active, and they're going to be uptake more of these nutrients and things of that nature. So pH is extremely important.
Nice. So this next question is kind of more so concentrated on the social aspects of the industry. Can you discuss the celebrity grower hype that sweeps through the industry no matter what state you're in? It just seems that these celebrity growers just turn up or have claims to that.
Well, yeah. Think about the day and age that we live in. We live in the age of smartphones. I can take 100 pictures a day on my phone. I'm walking around a warehouse with, three tens of thousands of plants. There's bound to be some amazing looking plants in there, and I can take pictures all day and blast them all over social media, and make them popular, make them, because they're impressive, and it's cannabis will kind of grow in any condition, so it's not extremely difficult to make an impressive plant. It's extremely difficult to be consistent, and every time you do it. So it actually, I think part of it is because it's so easy to spread the word, and everyone wants to know what's going on. So all these people all over in all these other states and all over the country are watching Colorado and watching these other states that have legalized marijuana for medical or recreational, and looking at these amazing plants, and they are amazing plants. So I kind of think that kind of builds this hype and this rapport, and then it kind of builds on that.
Right, it's a lot of word of mouth and a lot of hype. It seems like, doesn't it?
Yeah.
What would you say that you enjoy most about the growing experience? Being a grower, growing plants, cultivating life.
It's amazing. I love getting in there and cloning and taking this stem that I just cut off of a plant and putting it in a hormone, and dipping it in a medium, and just knowing that it's going to be a new plant. That's going to be a new life. And then, that plant's going to veg out. And I'm going to top it, and I'm going to shape it. I'm going to make this big, beautiful plant out of it. And, I'm going to bottom it, just make it look perfect. And then move it into flower. And then it's going to grow these amazing buds. It's going to live a very happy plant life. And then one day, I'm going to go in there, I'm going to cut it down, because that's part of it. You got to kill the plant. Hang it, dry it, cure it, and then I'm going to enjoy it. And I'm going to allow other people to enjoy this beautiful plant, and for everything that it's worth.
I hear that, my friend. Now, I guess the converse of that is, what do you, I guess, enjoy the least about being a grower and all the methodology of it?
It's, I still love it, but it's hard work. It's, it's not easy. It takes a lot of time. It takes, not just working physically, like hard, busting your ass at the grow, moving plants and moving soil and bottoming plants, trimming plants and potting plants and doing all the hard physical labor and, the upkeep of the grow, taking care of the HVAC and the lights and the environment itself. But beyond that, there's, lost my train of thought. But anyway, it's hard work. You spend beyond all that. There's a lot of time. You're sitting on your couch and you're just thinking about these plants and you're just thinking, what are they doing? Are they happy? Could something be going wrong? And hopefully you have camera access to your phone. You're looking. The next thing you know, you're looking at them at 2:00 in the morning. And now you're sitting on your couch, like thinking about plants when you should be enjoying your life, because it really is a life. Being a cannabis grower, because the plants are alive 24/7, 365. So they kind of have to be on your mind all the time. And then at the same time, you're doing research and you're thinking about ways to improve the plant's life to increase your yield and your potency. So it really, like I said, it really just kind of takes over your life. It's worth it, but
it's time consuming.
Exactly.
So let's talk about the future. The future of cannabis cultivation, and with the recent emergence of GMOs becoming extremely popular. What do you think the future of cannabis in regards to GMOs? What are your thoughts on that?
I think it'll kind of split down the middle. I definitely think they're going to GMO the shit out of cannabis. I think you'll still have your organic cannabis. There will always be a market for that. But they're definitely going to GMO, especially for the large-scale mass production. They're going to alter them to be spider mite resistant and resist powdery mildew. It's going to be legit. They might, it is what it is. It's genetically modifying the organism. So, it has its benefits. And I definitely think, if it's ever going to be on, the Marlboro or Philip Morris scale, we're going to have to kind of adapt to that. But at the same time, I think there will still be those, mom and pop, cannabis shops, just like there is with tobacco. You can get, organic tobacco that has no pesticides and stuff on it, or whatever, or only organic pesticides, no GMOs, or whatever. Well, maybe, I don't know, but. But you know what I mean? You can, you get native spirits and it's like an organic cigarette. You can roll your own. I kind of think at some point, cannabis will go that direction. You're going to have your Philip Morris scale company, and they're going to be mass producing this, and they're going to have to GMO it to make it resistant, to keep their yields where they need to be at. So I think it is inevitable.
I agree with you. I think that I think it's a split too. There is always going to be that organic grow method, that pure method, the classic method of growing, and then there's just going to be this streamlined production method. Once obviously this becomes legalized nationwide. I mean, someone's gonna streamline it, and it's gonna be in every gas station and every store that you can possibly carry it legally in. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely.
What do you see the future of cannabis cultivation in Colorado specifically developing into, since it was almost pioneered on a commercial and industrial scale here the right way? How do you see it evolving in the future?
Honestly, like we were just saying, I think Colorado is going to be the forefront. They're leading the way, and whoever this mainline company is going to be, I think they're going to be born in Colorado. I think the market's right here, given the time and the resources to pull something like that off, and legislation to pull it off. I definitely think that's going to happen in Colorado first, even if the United States goes legal. And really all they're going to do is allow states to make their decision for them. They're just going to deschedule it and say, have your way. They're not going to say, hey, go smoke a joint on us. And then I think at that point Colorado will mainstream And then at some point down the road, I think once it's being mass produced in Colorado, I think then the states will probably push, or the citizens of the states will push for some sort of national regulation so that it can be accepted. Like you can have cannabis in California and drive to New York and not have to worry about getting arrested just because this state doesn't accept Colorado's weed. You know what I mean? Even if every state had their own law on it, I can see that being a problem. The interstate difference being a problem. So I think eventually it would have to come together as some blanket. Even if the federal government doesn't want to do it, I think eventually the states will push for it.
Nice. Well, I guess that brings us to my next question, which would be some kind of national recognition of cannabis cultivation. What do you, in regards to obviously it becoming streamlined once it's legalized, certain industries are grown in specific states, they're designated to certain areas. If you were to designate specific grow places in the borders of the United States, I guess we could also include Hawaii because I imagine growing cannabis out there must be phenomenal. But where do you think specifically in the United States would be the main centers for cannabis cultivation once it gets to that point where it's mass distribution across the United States?
Really, I think we already have 2 out of the 3. I think Colorado and California are going to be headliners in that. And as soon as a state, on the East Coast kind of steps up their game and gets into the cannabis industry like they should and get where they need to be, I kind of think those 3 areas would be the best for like headquartering a mainland company. But as far as sweet spots to grow, Hawaii would definitely be an interesting one. California, Northern California especially, is a great growing environment naturally. I would even say probably, like Alabama, probably has some great growing environments. It's dry for most of the year, but it still gets a little chilly. Florida might be too humid, although I do love Florida. I would be interested in doing that as soon as it gets off the ground up here, but only time will tell. But like I said, once an East Coast state kind of gets into the game, I would see, whoever has stake in all 3 states could definitely take over the industry.
You think that's primarily due to the soil dynamics in those states? Also, in regards to the environment that they'll be produced in, or you think it's...
Absolutely. You can go from one side of Colorado to the other and find different soil environments. It's seems like all over. I would actually be interested in finding out people growing in random places. Iowa probably grows really well. They have a lot of farming and soil out there now.
Yeah, there's a lot of animal droppings out there fertilizing that soil, huh?
Right. So basically, wherever historically has been huge in farming would probably exemplify in cannabis growing. Cannabis will grow anywhere. It's literally a weed. I know they call it weed for slang, but it is actually a weed. It will grow in basically any environment. It's just perfecting that environment that is what we're trying to do.
Agreed. 100% that is definitely a weed. And an accumulator plant, too.
Oh, absolutely.
Which is crazy. That they used cannabis to remove radioactivity from the Chernobyl disaster out of the soil and the ground. Which
I've heard about that. It's pretty intense.
What do you desire to see happen in the cannabis movement in your lifetime? What would be the main thing that you would be looking for?
National legalization, man. Absolutely. It's the pinnacle. And once that happens, it's going to be a happier time for everybody.
Agreed.
Yeah, cannabis, for most of the history of the world, cannabis has been legal. And it hasn't been until recent history in the United States that it became illegal. And then other nations kind of followed suit on this drug war thing. So it'll be nice to have it the way it was. Like, hell, the founding fathers grew hemp. The Declaration of Independence is written on it. So it has its perks. And outside of just the medicine aspect or the enjoyment aspect of it, you have the actual practical aspects of it. You can produce oil, fuel, thread, clothing, paper. There's hundreds of things you can use hemp for. So, absolutely, I think that would be the pinnacle, is if we get to that state where we're using hemp to make our paper anymore, we're not killing trees anymore that we don't need to kill because we're producing paper on our fucking farms. Sorry. Probably shouldn't have said that. Anyway, but yeah, we'll be growing paper on farms, and we won't have to, be cutting down our rainforest anymore. I'm not some liberal that loves the forest, but it's just practical to, make this resource that we use so much renewable, and same thing with fuel and all this other stuff. It's endless, and I think that would be the absolute pinnacle for the cannabis movement.
Nice, man. Yeah, I agree too. I mean, rather than deforestation, might as well take a plant where we can cross-utilize the plant to harvest seeds, buds, and stems from them, and why not, right?
You can literally recycle a cannabis plant.
So, it moves on. I guess to my next question would be is, what is your foresight on the national legalization of cannabis? When do you foresee or project it to be happening?
Oh, it's definitely happening. It's a bullet that can't be stopped. You look at the country 7-10 years ago, when we were first getting in, into, before we even got into the cannabis industry, we were just learning about it. There was only a handful of states that were even medical, and now you look at it 20-something states are medical. You have half dozen that are recreational now. It's on its way. I think that nationally, we'll probably need at least 30 to 35 states to maybe even make it recreational, not just medical, before the government's all right, now we have to do this. If 35 states make it medical, they might feel pressure to at least medicalize it. Before it goes full rec, we might have to wait for the good majority of states to pass it before the federal government can't not do it anymore.
What year would you think that would? What year do you forecast that to happen based off the exponential legalization thus far?
I would love to see it by 2020, but I want to say 2025.
Dang, I was gonna say 2018 or 2019. I was gonna say within the next 2 years, personally, because 2012, I think, or 2011 it was.
I really hope if it really depends on what direction politics goes right now, and we're changing power. We're going from a Democratic to a Republican thing, and with that, there's always the uncertainty of certain things. So hopefully that doesn't slow anything down, especially with states' legalization of it. But like I said, hopefully 2020.
Totally, we can definitely make America great again with cannabis.
Right?
Yeah. So, some current events. Another new question for you, actually. CBD and being classified as a Schedule I drug. What is your thoughts on the progressive movement of the cannabis? Expansion to other states and other states becoming in tune with it, and then we're taking one step back by taking a non-psychoactive substance and making it a Schedule I drug.
Oh, it's absolute malarkey. It's just a political game. Everyone knows, there's so much research out there that has proven over the last decade that cannabis, that specifically CBD, has medical benefits, which is what a Schedule I drug is. It's, it is declared to have zero medical benefit, which we all know is false. And they know it's false. I think it's kind of, grasping for straws, because they make a lot of money off of illegal cannabis. That's what the DEA, that's their money hole, man.
It's
Not that
it's alarming though, isn't it?
It doesn't make them the big bucks, but it pays the bills. You know what I mean?
It's alarming that they could take a non-psychoactive substance and completely change the face of how it's represented to people, and how it's being categorized with such harmful, life-ruining drugs when CBD has literally killed nobody ever, and I mean it's done nothing but help people.
Oh, absolutely. You're going to tell me that CBD is equal to heroin? Get out of here. Like, that's not...
It's nonsense, right?
It's nothing nonsense. You're talking about an opioid compared to a cannabinoid? Like, that's ridiculous. Like, they're... Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, there's no logical way you can even say that they're similar in any aspect.
One step forward, two steps back, Cory.
Absolutely.
Where do you see yourself and your relationship with cannabis in 2017 and beyond?
Well, I'm out here in Florida now, hoping to help get this off the ground. So, yeah, that's where I'm at now. That's where my future is taking me for now. If anything changes, I'll roll with it. But, yeah, I'm hoping to help make Florida put a player in the game. I want to get cannabis growing here all over year-round, statewide. Whatever I can do to help this state, I hope that, and then hope potentially, help other states and go wherever I need it, really, as a consultant. So.
Nice. Last question for tonight. We'll wrap this up. What's the best advice for a new cultivator aspiring to get in the cannabis industry that you can give?
Use the scientific method. You're going to hear so many different ways of growing. You're going to hear so many different nutrients, so many different mediums, so many different ways of doing growing of this plant, to grow this plant. You're going to hear, and my best advice for you is to do scientific method. Do an experiment. Note what happens. Record it. Track the data. If you see that using a certain nutrient is increasing your yield, figure out how much that nutrient is costing you. And then mass produce it. Just use your brain. Take it one step at a time. It's hard work. Every grower has their own method. What they like, what they're trying to get from the plant. So just use that motivation and follow the experiments, follow the science, because it is a science. It's not just a bunch of backyard hippies anymore. It's just science.
Nice, Cory. Well, I want to thank our guest, Cory Byrd. I had an amazing time picking your brain tonight and getting your expert cultivator insight into the largest emerging industry in America at the moment. And to all of our listeners, if you'd like to get in touch with Cory or any of the other cannabis consultants, please visit fullmeltfusion.com. I will put a link in the description box, and for those of you who found this content interesting and want more, then hit the subscribe button and like this video. Thanks for tuning into the show. Good night.